Hello everyone, welcome back to Majorhifi. I'm Luke. Today we have a brand new IEM from 64 Audio, and by brand new I do not mean a universal version of a previously custom fit. I mean a brand new IEM, new to everyone, and this is the Duo. This is a dual driver hybrid IEM. It runs for $11.99, which is actually considered the lower end of 64 Audio's universal price range. They do have some even less expensive custom fits in the like 600, 700 range. We previously reviewed the U6T, which was a custom fit, which was then released as a universal fit. I will link to that below. I've also done the U18S. I will link to that too. But this is a brand new IEM, and I am quite excited to talk about it. I'm a big fan of this company. I'm not alone in that. I know many people love 64 Audio, and I'm one of them. So let's go on ahead and open this thing up and talk all about it. All right, so pretty similar packaging to other things from 64 Audio. It's a very well-presented, minimal experience. I'll start off with the accessories to get that over with. We've got our cool kind of spaceship of ear tips here. We've got foam and silicone ear tips going on. Then we get a cleaning tool, nothing special, and a clip if you want to clip the wire to, whatever you feel like. And then we have a case. It's a hard shell leather case. I'm a fan of hard shell cases. I don't like sort of pouches for IEMs, at least at this price range. I don't want to worry about them getting squished by anything in my bag. So a hard shell case is good, and also a sticker. And here are the Duo. I'm doing a terrible job showing them to you. Here we go, kind of. There'll be a close-up. These do not make a super strong statement, which is fine. They're very simple. I still think they're quite luxurious looking in many ways. We've got this cool sort of metallic silver band going around the backing here, and this grill on the back of them too, which actually serves a purpose sonically, which I'll talk about in a minute. And overall, they're pretty unassuming looking, but they don't look cheap or anything like that, and they are not cheap, so that tracks. But they don't have maybe quite the pizzazz of some of the IEMs that are out right now. I'm aware there's sort of a trend of like super loud, bombastic looking IEMs going on, and I'm a fan of that, but there's also something to be said for kind of versatile, no big deal, no frills. I think they look fine. I think they look good. I don't have a whole lot to say. There really isn't a whole lot to say. Fit-wise, these fit the same as every 64 Audio IEM. If you have tried any of their universal IEMs, then theirs is no different. If you haven't before, they're kind of this ovular / rectangular sort of shape. They do look a bit simple in the curvature. I'm aware they just sort of look like maybe not quite as complex and nuanced as some of these super molded fits we get these days on IEMs. I've always found these feel a bit more comfortable than they look. Not to say that they look uncomfortable, but a lot of universal IEMs these days have this shape to them where they almost look like custom IEMs, and these ones do not. They look pretty universal, but they fit just as comfortably as those super sort of molded shaped IEMs you see out these days. Just sort of like in a different way, I suppose. I've never had any discomfort with these at all. They're just a bit more of a simple fit, I suppose. And yeah, so not much else to say on that. These are a dual driver IEM, like I said. They have one dynamic and one balanced armature driver. The balanced armature driver, as is the case with most of 64 Audio's IEMs, is one of their signature TIA drivers, which is a tubeless driver design. This means that it's supposed to reduce unwanted resonance and distortion. The TIA driver handles the high end, while the dynamic driver handles the low. I suppose that kind of means high and high mid, and then low and low mid, as there's not a driver for the mid-range specifically. The Duo also uses 64 Audio's WaveSync technology, which uses an all-pass filter, allowing a crossover that corrects for time without having to change the physical distance between the drivers. Additionally, that faceplate that I mentioned on the back has a perforated grill that opens up the IEM to basically create an unobstructed airflow and minimize fatigue. These have a frequency response of 20 Hz to 20 kilohertz and an impedance of 9 ohms. All right, so let's go on ahead and talk about how they sound. So soundstage-wise, 64 Audio definitely excels at soundstages. That's one of their specialties, in my opinion, in terms of IEMs. They go way wider than most can on the market, and the Duo is no exception to this. I will say it comes surprisingly close in width to some of their more expensive models, similar to how the U6T did. It comes much closer in width to some of their models that are twice the price than you would expect. That being said, it is not quite as wide and holographic as, like the U18S or U12T, and that's okay. It's not to a fault, it's just gonna be a little bit less intensely cinematic and wide. I mean, you are paying a premium for those insane sound stages that you get from some of the most expensive 64 audio models. But like I said, this does come very pleasantly close for the fact that it is a fair amount cheaper. It seems to save kind of those widest edges of the stereo spectrum for a smaller portion of the mix than maybe some other of the 64 audio IEMs do that sort of try to push out as much as possible. This is a bit more conservative with what it pulls out that far, or what amount of the mix is pulled out to that extent, but those super wide outer edges still are utilized, that room still exists. And I would most certainly say that the Duo is a fair amount wider than most IEMs in its price range. I would probably put this on a similar tier to say like the Canera Nana, which has a really great soundstage. So the low end on these are quite heavy in the low end, definitely similar once again to the U6T, which has a pretty booming low end response to it, though this is probably even a bit more. It's one of the bassier IEMs I've heard from 64 audio. Somebody got mad at me for using the word bassy on this channel. They said it made them think about Beats by Dre. God forbid I plant that thought in your head. I understand though. It's a little bit of a questionable word, but if you know what I mean, then I don't see a reason to not use it. These are bassy. They have a lot of bass or low end. I would say that they're pretty sub heavy, not super sub dominant maybe, but they do make a point of getting those basement frequencies brought out a fair amount, and their attack is pretty rounded off, kind of as you see with IEMs that have a bit more sub presence. They kind of take back the attack just a tad bit and give you more of that warmer kind of rumble underneath. Not to say that these don't punch, they just have a bit more of a rounded edge on the punch. It's not a super sharp, snappy hit going on, and the kind of middle area of the low end isn't like scooped out, but it's a bit recessed, which creates a more cleaned up, groomed timbre down there. So it's a strong low end, but it's still very easy on the ears. Like I said, it reminds me a little bit of the U6T. It has some characteristics of the U12T also, with kind of that really full, warm sub range and a bit of the middle area of the lows kind of recessed, but the U12T definitely has a stronger kind of hit to it than this does. But this probably has a bit more rumble to it than the U12T or maybe the U18S does. All right, so the mid-range on this is very, very smoothed out. That's kind of the overall character of this IEM. If you're starting to notice that, it's very, very smoothed, warmed out, rounded edges. It's not a harsh IEM in any respects. It's actually quite the inverse of that. So the high mid is unsurprisingly quite recessed. It's quite cut a fair amount, not to the point that we're losing like presence or that things are becoming kind of dulled, but you are not going to get any kind of sharpness, and you're really not gonna get any bite from this. That doesn't have to be a bad thing, but if you want that kind of extra crispy mid-range, this might not be the place to look. It's definitely better for a more colorful, warmed up, rounded edge type sound like I've been saying. So this could make it good for genres like rock, country, pop music, things that have a bit more of a kind of edge to them, often some more twang or something like that, assuming that you want those qualities to be a little bit more tamed and controlled. If you're looking for something to bring those qualities out and push them forward, maybe check out like the Tia Trio or the U12T, which has a bit more body to the high mid, whereas these are a bit more subdued in that area. Would make them definitely good for like electronic music, for example, which tends to err on the side of extreme smoothness and cleanliness, where these will just kind of give it the extra push to get there all the way. And certainly makes it quite good for, very acoustic, organic sounds, because it's not going to bring out kind of an unnatural brightness about the mid-range whatsoever. So it's just a more docile kind of sound on the mid-range to these, but it still pretty much retains a fair amount of impact. It's just not super in your face, and I'm a fan of that personally, as someone with sensitive ears and just as someone who likes a pretty groomed mid-range sound. So in terms of the high end, it's continuing that theme of pretty laid back, kind of easygoing, very liquid feel to it. This is a super warmed up high end. It's probably one of the warmer, sort of least intense high ends I've heard on a 64 audio IEM. Definitely a fair amount less bright than some of the more expensive models. Once again, I do feel like there are some similarities to the U6T, but the U6T is a fair amount brighter than this. This does have some pockets of kind of boosts going on in the high end, some very sort of thin little layers here and there scattered about. of brightness and kind of crispness. I wouldn't say that it's dark, but it's definitely got a pretty kind of dappled brightness to it, a kind of dappled texture and detail boost going on. If you want that extra ultra crispness, these just are not trying to achieve that, and that's, you know, just what they're about. All right, so overall, I appreciate these seeming to deliver the same level of quality I see across 64 Audio's product line of universal IEMs, despite them being in the lower end of their luxury price range. Of course, they're not cheap at all, but they are less than some of the other options, and of course, sort of similar once again to the U6T, which runs for, I think, like $100 more. These are gonna be a great IEM if you have been interested in 64 Audio, but you don't wanna shell out, you know, multiple thousands of dollars. Maybe you want to shell out $1,000 or a little over that, then these could be a good gateway into their product line for sure, because they still represent it very well, and they still contain a lot of those kind of quintessential 64 Audio you know, qualities and feel to them. I like that they have their own kind of unique character, but they're still very versatile. They just, you know, kind of add their own perspective to the sound, as any IEM should. This to me does a good balance of kind of natural, transparent, but also giving you a little bit of inflection to, you know, make it feel like there's a reason you're listening to it through the Duo and not something else. So I guess I would say it's like natural, but still intuitive, you know? So yeah, this is a really impressive IEM. It does what any great IEM should do, which is kind of give you an increased sense of intimacy and closeness to the music, perhaps a feeling that you have lost after, you know, wearing your ears down with much music listening and many other devices. This is a great opportunity to kind of bring you back into things. That's what I look for in a great IEM, is does it kind of perk my ears back up, which is quite hard to do because I am constantly filling them with sound from many different sources. And these for me were a great moment of kind of like, you know, re-immersion, things that maybe I've become a bit detached from. Getting a bit vague there, but if you understand, you understand. Anyways, I'll be back soon with some more videos and reviews and all those kinds of things. I will also link to Majorhifi's IEM ranking tool, where these will be up alongside every other 64 Audio IEM and basically every IEM out there for the most part. So go on ahead and compare these to others if you need some extra help figuring out which IEM is right for you. Let me know if you have any videos you'd like to see, reviews you want to see, all those things, any questions about this that I didn't answer, comparisons to other IEMs I may or may not have heard. Let me know in the comments. I would be happy to answer as soon as I can. And until next time, happy listening.